Good morning, everyone. I am now going to call the February 8th, 2023 San Diego County Board of Supervisors Land Use Meeting and Sanitation District regular meeting to order. As a reminder, according to the board rules and procedures, audience members shall not whistle, clap, stomp feet, or anything that disrupts the proceedings. With that, clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. Supervisor Anderson. Here. Supervisor Fletcher. Supervisor Desmond. Here. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. Chairwoman Vargas.
I'm so happy. My colleagues are so happy today. So we're going to continue on. Item number 24 from yesterday's agenda later on this morning at 10 a.m. And I know there was a member who wanted to be part of public comment. And so probably about like 9:55 or so, we'll make sure that they have an opportunity to speak. 10 again, so that they know. We'll remind them. All right, with that, we will now proceed with non-agenda public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within the board's jurisdiction, but not on an item on today's agenda. The only action that the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. Reminder, according to rule number 4, members of the public that are non-English speakers and need interpretation assistance will get twice the allotted time for their comments, which is 4 minutes. To better facilitate the meeting, we will have 5 speakers in person and 5 speakers via phone, and the rest of the non-agenda public communications will be heard at the close of today's meeting. With that, clerk, can you call the speakers?
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 19 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 5 in person and 14 coming by phone. For those that have requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You'll then have 2 minutes to address the board. And I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Michael Brando, Bryant Roomba, Robert Gurman, Catherine Rhodes, and Audra.
Hello, Catherine Rhodes, and again, for Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, I'm going to ask you again to run for mayor of San Diego, mainly to stop the cruel homeless sweeps. Todd Glory promised and campaigned he would stop the sweeps, and then he let us down. He literally said he will stop the sweeps, and then he did it. It's so sad. So more ideas for you and why you should run for our mayor instead of state senator in the District 39. The demographics actually changed quite a bit. Now you're going to have to deal with the city of Coronado and the city of El Cajon and their very loud mayors. So I don't think you want to undo that compared to just keep it in San Diego. The other thing is, they took out La Jolla and Pacific Beach. And one big thing is that you'll get executive experience. So if you want to go to, let's say, be the governor, you'll have this executive experience to run on. You need it. The next thing is you'll get free drivers and securities to any event. So I think that's a really good thing. So, and then now this is for Supervisor Nora Vargas for San Diego. KUSI made a lot of wrong things. They keep on trying to say that you didn't get a majority of the tally votes. They said you didn't, but you did. Everybody did. And so you need to, I hope they'll clear that up. The other thing is that there's only 3 promises in the San Diego Transnet. And there are the Midcoast Corridor and the ends of Highway 52 and I think 78. Those were the only promises made in Transnet. And what it says is you can make amendments every year with a 2/3 vote. So every year you make changes. And so for people to say, oh, you didn't do these things that you had in 2004, yeah, because you had in the ordinance that you can make these changes. And then, there's 2 types of the road mileage charge. There's a regional one with 2/3 votes that you cut off, and then there's one that's going to be done by the state in 2030 in the federal government. And so I don't think a lot of people know that. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Robert Gurman. Yesterday, my presentation was in support of Agenda Item 4, Live Well San Diego. I apologize. I failed to mention Item 4 in my slides or on my slides and in my talk, so I apologize. I didn't want to give the impression that I took cuts, so thank you.
All right, good morning, Jim. Brian Rumbaugh. So to continue from yesterday, the gentleman's name is Thomas Sowell, and I'm going to spell it for you, Sowell. Now, I wanted to ask for an update, and I also want to really give you an update, Jim. So the update that I'm curious about is pretty much the second meeting that I showed up here. That would have been September 13th. The first public speaker was a man by the name of Alejandro Sanchez. And he was from your district, our district, and really he was questioning the misappropriation, the failure of the homeless situation, the affordable housing type, problems that he's noticed as being an activist in North County. And really what I'm curious is that man showed up here and really gave with a binder full of information where he had documented proof, and he was actually going to be approaching the federal government. And I'm curious if there was been any advancement in his, more or less the material that he had given you. In your guys' mailboxes, through your clerk, I did leave a couple QR codes. I do want to tell you that during the course of me dealing with you and listening to you, I've kind of watched you, like for instance, that weapons of mass destruction that you had talked about. I asked you if you had understood where that originated from. There's a couple QR codes on this, this little card here. One of them is a proud veteran who is really questioning George W. Bush as to the lies that really killed millions of Iraqis as well as his fellow service members. He was pretty pissed off. I recommend you watch it. The other one is about, I titled it Artificial Scarcity Equals Maximum Profitability. It's by L. Fletcher Prouty, another good American, just like Thomas Sowell. And I want you to watch both of them. It would help you out.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to meet with you off time so we could have a dialogue. But we can't do that here.
That's certainly coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I use the name Michael. I want to start with this and then my comments.
So I do appreciate that we continue to allow, people to question authority. There was a lot of questioning going on during COVID. So I do appreciate that we continue to allow, people to question authority. There was a lot of questioning going on during COVID.
That's one reason why I like being here in person at these meetings, because some of the most revelatory things are said, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. It doesn't really matter, though, because truth was spoken. Jim Desmond actually said that we allow people to question authority. People up on this dais allow people to question authority. I don't know if it's because some people are getting more dumbed down by the injections and repeat injections, but that example he gave was brilliant. Thank you, Jim, in demonstrating totalitarianism. Sarah, I see you smiling at Jim because you know this is the truth too. Oh, by the way, it was interesting to ride up in the elevator with Audra Morgan today, along with Nora Vargas and Joel Anderson. I have no animosity toward any of you, but it's just kind of interesting how you can act like everything's normal when it's not. And that's really why we come here, or at least I come here, maybe some others too. Have a blessed day.
My name, I use the pronouns rock, paper, scissors. It is interesting, Jim, to have you say we're allowed when it's something that as a human being we have the right to do, and it's our duty to hold you all accountable because you actually work for us, we don't work for you, and you're supposed to do what the people ask of you because you're supposed to represent them. So it's just odd when it's like, we're allowing this. You don't have a choice. But what you guys try and do is shut people up and, beat me out in the hall just to shut us up. But it was interesting seeing you guys in the elevator because you're talking about Heart Month or whatever and love your heart. And I think that that's great. But as we're doing that, I think, I'm telling you now that there has been problems with the vaccine, killing people but causing blood clots, myocarditis, and different things. Will you please look into that? Can I give you information? Can we have people give you information so that you can use that? Because this is necessary right now because there are so many issues. But if we don't look at the cause of it and pretend that that isn't an issue, then you're not really helping people because you're not telling them why that's going on. And these vaccines, somebody went and did a test where they draw their blood and they put one drop of each vaccine on the blood, and immediately it changed, and it started clotting. And so it's like, if we're gonna be checking hearts, please, we're not just saying this because I don't want people to die. So I want you to look into it because it's life and death for these people. And so as they're going around checking these people, there's probably been an influx in that. And people having problems with their heart and blood pressure. So please, will you allow us to give you information, and will you look at it and literally take it to heart?
Thank you.
Thank you.
To note for the record, that speaker was Audra. We will now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. Again, when it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is John Bodorf with CleanEarthForKids.org. I'm speaking today to ask you to please take action to protect our air. I ask you to pass a building electrification ordinance to stop gas lines in new construction, also stop wood-burning fireplaces for new construction. Wood smoke is a complex mixture of gases and fine particles called particulate matter, or PM. Particulate matter irritates the lungs, and research clearly shows that wood smoke increases the risk of serious health outcomes, including asthma, heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and brain conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia. Wood smoke also contains cancer-causing pollutants like benzene, formaldehyde, acrolein, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons called PAHs, along with carbon monoxide and methane. Burning 10 pounds of wood in 1 hour creates the same cancer-causing PAHs as 6,000 packs of cigarettes. That is like smoking a pack of cigarettes every day for over 16 years just by being near a wood fire. For gas lines, natural gas is methane. Methane is a hazardous indoor air pollutant and a major contributor to climate change. The use of gas stoves in the home increases the risk of asthma and other respiratory diseases. Gas stoves are responsible for almost 13% of all U.S. childhood asthma cases, and gas stoves leak methane even when turned off. Methane has no business anywhere near children. Please educate the public on the dangers of wood smoke and take immediate action to stop the burning of methane and wood in new construction and stop recreational wood fires as well. Please protect our air. I also ask you to stop second and third-hand smoke in multi-unit housing. This has already been done in over 76 cities and counties in California. I also ask you to ban all public smoking. The use of tobacco, marijuana, vapes, and e-cigarettes is proven to be harmful to public health. Smoking is smoking, and smoking hurts not just the smoker, but everyone around them. Thank you from Clean Earth for Kids.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller. For the caller, you've been, oh, we lost that caller. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, supervisors and staff. Oliver Twist here with 3 things. First, I again call on you to implement a split-screen format for your video feed during public comments so that there is an archival record on whether you're paying attention to speakers or instead staring down at your phones, as is so often the case. Next, I am asking for you to implement a formal attendance policy and tracking system. After making a public records request for all of your attendance records, I was told that it would be up to me to go through all of the minutes and to check individual performance. For a board that touts transparency, this is completely unacceptable. As such, I now ask you to integrate both a formal dashboard that tracks both attendance and punctuality and to hold yourselves to the same standards of which you hold your employees. I also ask you to start tracking those of you who arrive late or depart early and make note of that in the minutes as well as a tracking system. Hold yourself to the same standard as your employees. Publicly and openly track and display your attendance under the umbrella of transparency and accountability. Lastly, in light of Tara teleconferencing at the SANZAG meeting earlier, it was celebrated as a hurrah for working moms, so I'm asking you to fully demonstrate your commitment to equity for your own staff and begin implementing 5 virtual days benefit for them, where they too can work virtually for caregiving needs. During the government COVID response these past 3 years, there was a disparity between how elected officials were treated and the benefits they enjoyed, while the worker bees were still expected to show up in person to keep the cogs of the government wheels moving. So in the name of equity, please treat your employees the same to the benefits that you get. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Barbara Gordon. As a member of the County Tobacco-Free Coalition, I am asking this board to consider a policy that would prohibit smoking in all public spaces. This would be an effective strategy to reduce plastic pollution in the county. This policy would be an upstream solution for preventing pollution at the source, as well as protecting public health. This is a particularly important concept when it comes to commercial tobacco and marijuana products. Secondhand smoke is a health hazard and can greatly impact the quality of life of non-smokers. We know the tobacco and marijuana industry has been successful in avoiding any environmental regulations and have a very successful business model to attract kids as their customers. Not only is it important to prevent the demand for tobacco and marijuana products from an environmental standpoint, but from a public health standpoint, as the average smoker begins smoking at the age of 17 and will become a lifetime smoker. I urge the board to enact this policy that prohibits smoking in all public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Hi, Nora, Supervisors. Paul Henkin here. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm glad to see that there are only 4 agenda items today, none apparently involving Sandag. Nora, did you ever remind Sandag that its proper role is transportation planning, not urban planning, that it needs to get its contracts and finances in order? Oh, well, no response. Anyway, you deal with a number of bully organizations, but you need to stand up to these bullies like our great President Teddy Roosevelt, who said, walk softly but carry a big stick. There are other organizations which I describe as bullies. A few institutional landlords who seem to be out for profit rather than helping out with the homeless crisis or even the affordable housing program. They're bullies. The sheriff's department, who beat up Audra when she was calm and to have resisted a valid court order for 29 years, it is a bully. It's costing you big bucks, too. SDG&E, or Sempra, where my utility bill jumped from $200 per month to over 1,000 in the last go-round. It is BS to believe that when they buy natural gas at a certain specified time, that it does not manipulate the market. They are bullies. You've got to be firm. Please let these people know that they're not really as big as they think, and that they need to fulfill their mission of helping people, making their lives better, not taking advantage. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Suzanne Hume. I'm the Educational Director and founder of CleanEarthForKids.org. As you know, our air is in trouble. San Diego County has an F in ozone and an F in particulate matter pollution, according to the American Lung Association's State of the Air Report 2022. Clean air saves lives. We need to do everything in our power to protect public health and the air our children breathe, the water they drink, our public lands, neighborhoods, and communities in San Diego County. And many of the things that we, Clean Earth for Kids, have been asking for years are free, of no cost to you or anyone. But not taking action has a high price. Our kids and communities pay this price. Please do not promote wood smoke or allow wood fires on public lands. Please promote clean air educational programs and share videos like those our students have made. Please listen to the doctors and scientists. Smoke, pollution, pesticides, and toxic chemicals drift through the air and get into our water. Air pollution causes birth defects, learning disabilities, preterm birth, stillbirths, low birth weight, and harms nearly every cell and organ in our body. This impacts children's health, development, and ability to learn and thrive. there are very many important things that you can do that are very simple and free. So please join us at Clean Earth for Kids for a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning. And again, for all the remaining speakers, will be heard at the conclusion of today's session.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, statement of proceedings for the regular board meeting of January 25th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Is there a second? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Supervisor Anderson, I was looking at you because I thought you wanted. I was like, does he want to say something? I'm not really sure what's happening. Okay.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the formation of our consent calendars. Items 1 to 3. Members of the public will be able to comment on the consent calendar after the supervisors pull the items they would like for discussion. Would any of my colleagues like to pull anything for discussion? Supervisor Anderson?
Yes, I'd like to pull item 3.
Okay. Supervisor Fletcher? Thank you. Supervisor Desmond?
I have none to pull, but on the motion, I'm going to be voting, and I want to register a no vote on item 1.
Okay. All right. Vice Chair Lawson-Weimer?
Nothing to pull. Do you need a second?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. And I don't, go ahead. Yes. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairwoman. There was just, if I could add some information as it relates to agenda item number 2 for the record. For agenda item number 2, I would like to clarify that all of the new requirements in this cycle of the Energy Code are required by the state of California. The county is not going above and beyond those particular requirements in this update, but is also not able to be less restrictive for new construction. The state code changes that went into effect January 1, 2023 require new buildings to be electric ready. Electric ready means new buildings must have electric outlets along with the needed wiring and electric panel capacity to support electric appliances, even though it may have a gas appliance connection when installed. Most homes built today already meet this requirement, and it ensures both gas and electric appliance compatibility. However, at the time of construction, either the space or water heater themselves are required to be electric. All other appliances have the option to be installed as gas or electric. The new state requirements went into effect January 1 and are not part of the staff recommendations before the board for consideration today. The only recommendations before the board are the local amendments to the California Building Code. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to go ahead and ask for speakers.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 7 total requests to speak on items on the consent calendar, 3 individuals in person, and 4 requesting to speak by phone. As a reminder, item number 3 was pulled from the consent calendar for discussion. So any member of the public that has requested to speak on that item, if you could please hold your comments until the board discusses that item. We will receive public comment on that item separately. For any members of the public that have requested to speak on the remaining items on the consent calendar, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that have been provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall into the murals until it is your turn to speak. And I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Robert Gurman, Catherine Rhodes, and Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please begin by stating your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Robert Gurman. I support this item 4, but it only covers traffic control workers. What about those workers inside the fence or airside at our county airports? Their wages should be parallel with workers at Lindbergh. If not, then you are endorsing a double-breasting system practicing trickle-down economics. This business practice currently exists at San Diego County airports. The county should apply the Working Family Ordinance and all airside to all airside private airport workers. Airport workers work all hours in all weather conditions and breathe toxic fumes from jet fuel to leaded avgas while protecting the health and safety of pilots, citizens on the ground, company employees, and the flying public. They maintain jets, helicopters, private and flight school planes. The biggest companies in San Diego Gas and Electric, General Atomic, Medevac, and CAL FIRE are serviced by airport workers at our county airports. San Diego Gas and Electric is doubling their new firefighting fleet. General Atomic is adding 1 large jets for a total of 5 in their private fleet, all at Gillespie. Please consider helping these county airport workers afford to live in San Diego with coverage under the prevailing wage laws, just like you have done for these traffic control workers. Good pay and training is a safety solution. The squiggly lines that you see on the slide, well, I guess I didn't get a slide. Oh, do I get to start over? Oh, no, what do you mean, no? The squiggly lines, that's leaded, oh, you got them. That's leaded gas that gentleman, that worker is breathing and has his head over. He's fueling a general aviation aircraft. The next slide, oh, is a jet. While it's running, he's fueling a jet, and that's the squiggly lines. You really can't see it on that slide. But anyway, so thank you.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and I'm talking about number 2, the California Building Code updates, Appendix P for emergency housing. 7 years it took for you guys to finally change it. 7 years. Since 2016 I've been coming. So anyway, fabulous. This is a huge, big deal. You're now legal. Before you were illegal. And so one of the things I did is I sent you guys a letter on January 23rd regarding my public comments for the zoning ordinance that's coming up. And so anyway, I have a lot of things that I think you should add to the zoning ordinance, and it comes from Appendix P. Basically copy and paste Appendix P from the state, Housing and Community Development, and put it into your definition so people could know what a tiny home is. What there's so many, or a detached thing. There's so many wordings that you really need to know that you don't have right now, but you could. And so, let me see where I had my recommendations here. Let's see. Okay, one of the recommendations is you guys have 125 square feet per person. The state says you only need 70. Why can't we change it to 70 and we could get more people housed? Please change that to 70, so that's one of my things. The other thing is that you guys have a client waiting area, but there's no thing in state law that says you need this, these square feet for your client intake area. I think you should take that out. And then one of the things that says that people that live at emergency shelters are not allowed to work at the emergency shelters, which is exactly the opposite of best practices. So I think that you should take that out when it comes up. The other thing is, there's one more thing. Oh, the law says you can only have, your law says 180 days or 300. I want you to change it and said, except during a declared homeless shelter crisis state of emergency. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know my name. I use the pronouns rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, so basically with your ordinance here, what I was going to say, Jim, is I'm curious to know why you were going to vote no on number 1. Is it not a good one? Do you not like it? You're not going to answer that. That's fine. Maybe you'll talk about it later. That would be good. But I am glad, Sarah, you did tell me last time that you're working on doing the permits for longer, so.
Yes, the annual encroachment permits?
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. But with this ordinance for the green building stuff, I'm just wondering, it's like, are you at some point going to go to old houses and say they have to switch because it's not safe? I mean, or is it, and it's like, how many projects are in play right now that this affects because you're adding new requirements so it could keep them from even completing the project? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I think, before it was like, get solar, we're going to give you incentives to do it, and now they're taxing people for it. And even things like wells, like if you have your own well water, they want to tax you for it. So, I mean, are you going to start taxing people that don't have this and still have gas at some point? I mean, because it just doesn't seem right. And you talk about it being state requirements, but we're a charter county, so you don't have to follow that. You could say, we're not going to do that here, or we're going to do it in this way. So, I mean, you act like your hands are kind of tied, but they're really not. And I hope this doesn't keep people from actually really completing things, because you're adding new requirements and you can continue to do it as long as you want. I mean, whatever.
Thank you. Now we will hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Oliver Twist here. This is for item 2, the building codes. I just wanted to say, while I support any efforts at diversifying energy sourcing and capabilities, this would include adding electrification to projects. However, I am in complete opposition to any building code that would restrict new builds, updates, or remodels to a single source of energy, as is happening in other cities within San Diego County. We absolutely need to build redundant energy sources into our long-term planning. I'm guessing most of you likely diversify your own personal investment portfolios across various instruments as a risk management and mitigation strategy. We should do no less for our energy needs. So I just urge you to also be pragmatic stewards for this county and to have a plan for alternative energy sources that do not require electricity, as well as ensuring that new builds and remodels have redundant energy system capabilities. Just as you spread your personal nest eggs among different baskets, I'm encouraging you to do the same for the county's energy needs. Please remain open to multiple energy sources and do not channel us down the path of single source dependency. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning. This is Dorina Pelka, Policy Advocate with Climate Action Campaign. I'm speaking on item number 2. Methane gas is a dangerous air pollutant and greenhouse gas, worsening asthma and other cardiovascular disorders, particularly in our most vulnerable populations. We now know that this is an unsafe, unhealthy, and unaffordable energy source in our homes and buildings, when efficient, scalable solutions like electrification are available to keep our communities safe now. Although the State Building Code update is routine, I want to highlight new components of it that are critical to improving quality of life by moving towards electrification and building grid resilience. First, the new code requires all new construction to be electric ready. This is a major step on the path to electrification. Since new construction will be built with all electric wiring and space considerations, adding gas infrastructure into a new building simply becomes an unnecessary and massive added cost. Second, electric appliances such as heat pumps used for heating and cooling are extremely efficient. Operating at such high efficiencies helps minimize strain on the grid and energy bill costs for homeowners and tenants. Lastly, the new state code also increases required on-site renewable energy generation from solar, further building grid resilience as we electrify our communities by adding local supply. These updates are essential, but in order to have real impact, they must be paired with strong local commitments from the county to take climate action and improve air quality. In order to protect our families and climate from dangerous fossil fuel infrastructure, we urge the county to adopt a stringent all-electric ordinance for new construction now and further pursue existing building electrification. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Truth. Item 1, the county's working families ordinance destroys working families by increasing construction project prices by requiring over $62 an hour minimum wage. Higher wages always means cut hours and less jobs for working families. This item also makes Perriton the county information technology contractor. And last year, Peraton was awarded a $2.7 billion 10-year contract by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to modernize the DHS hybrid computing environment. Who's constantly, and they're always constantly involved in various activities, including hacking into Georgia's digital election system back in 2016. Peraton has partnered with Amazon, Microsoft, Cisco, Dell, Google, HP, and IBM, all of which are World Economic Forum members. So there won't be any security of people's data with this IT contract. I actually think it'd be better to not approve any permits for the evil companies known as AT&T, Cox, and SDG&E, who do nothing but overcharge us, which is no surprise because they're also all World Economic Fascist Forum partners, much like Nathan, a puppet. Item 2, just like item 1, admits there will be, quote, an increased cost for new residential construction, heat pump technology, electric wiring for electric appliances, and new commercial construction, mandatory solar and energy storage as a result, end quote. Go electric, go bankrupt. The new building codes encourage building electrification, toxic flammable lithium-based electric vehicle infrastructure, and electric vehicle adoption. When the lithium batteries catch on fire without warning, those fires can't be put out easily and can reignite at any time. Not to mention, people can't even afford to charge those cars with the expensive electricity.
As we transition more to electric vehicles, significantly more, if everyone charges at home, we're going to have tremendous grid problems.
Oh, another problem. And lastly, this item's all about doing whatever FEMA says, which makes Nathan Norris.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
You have to go to recent. Good morning. This is John Bodorf with CleanEarthForKids.org. We ask you to approve these building codes. We must electrify. We must stop using fossil fuels. We must immediately stop using natural gas. Burning of natural gas is an air pollutant, and it also destroys our climate. And we must encourage rooftop solar and microgrids, which reduces the overall load on the grid. This is all proven science. I asked you to look at Mark C. Jacobson from Stanford. They have the technology. They have the studies to prove that all this works. We do not need fossil fuels. We do not need natural gas. Please move forward with these ordinances. Thank you from Clean Earth for Kids.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on the items on the consent calendar.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Just once again, I want to reiterate my no on 1. Thank you.
And noting for the record that Supervisor Desmond registered a no vote on item 1. That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is discussion item number 3, strengthening processes and establishing criteria for County Chapter 8 Tax Defaulted Property Purchase District. Supervisor Anderson?
The reason I pulled this is I fully support it. The only concern I have is we have a housing crisis, and to overlook potential locations for housing, affordable housing, I think that should be part of the analysis. And if the author of this would be willing to take an amendment, I'd appreciate it. That would simply say that that they would also do an evaluation to see if it's suitable for affordable housing prior to evaluating it for habitat preserve.
Happy to take the, reply. I agree that we should definitely be looking at it affordable housing. I think that's a great idea. And I think that was an oversight on my part. So I'm very happy that you've made a motion. I think when I look at how this is written, I think it would be pretty simple. There's just where on number 3, it says establish broad criteria for assessing the public benefit of acquiring defaulted properties relative to the cost of minimum bid, including but not limited to environmental justice and equity. So why don't we say including but not limited to affordable housing, comma, environmental justice and equity. So that's one of the top things that they're looking at it for.
I must say, of all the amendments I've ever given, you are the easiest author because you come up with your own language.
Great.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, happy to do it.
over here at all, but it's okay. Now, I just have a clarification. So when we talk about affordable housing, I just want to make sure like if there's spaces for like pallets or some of this other stuff that we can include that in there. So I don't know if you just want to say housing versus affordable housing.
So would
And
you
I don't
wanna
want to get too caught up in it, but I just want to make sure because we don't have enough space. And so I think it's a great idea. The board letter is fantastic. And so I'm just saying, make it broad enough.
Would you want to say affordable housing and homelessness solutions or something like that?
I love it.
I'd be happy to take that. That's great. So just to reiterate, the amendment is including but not limited to affordable housing and homelessness solutions, comma, environmental justice and equity, comma, and then continuing on.
We're still efficient, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a motion?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
Second, okay, you got it. Any other additional discussion? No, please vote. Oh, yeah, we need public discussion on this item, sorry.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 5 total requests to speak, 2 individuals in person and 3 requesting to speak by phone. Also like to note for the record, we did not receive any e-comments on this item. For any members of the public that requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I would like to invite forward the following individuals: Catherine Rhodes and Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please begin by stating your name for the record.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is Catherine Rhodes, and I wanted to thank Supervisor Desmond for saying that. I have here in my notes, I want affordable housing and homeless added to the thing. Exactly what I want. I can't believe it. I'm getting miracles all over the place from you guys. I think you guys are doing so good. I just want to congratulate you. Finally, we're looking, we might have some hope, maybe. We haven't actually opened, anything, but there's hope. And so the other thing is that for people who default on their property, what happens? Are they going to become homeless because they're so poor and they can't do this? Maybe you could have some type of program that says if you can't pay your taxes, we'll have tiny homes in your backyard, or you can help the homeless, and we could put a few homeless people in your house to pay rent so that you have enough money to pay your taxes. So I think that there should be some type of thing, in the future, or actually really for tax default property purchase. This is what you need to do. Are you going to be how many people have become homeless because they didn't have money to pay their taxes? That's something that I think that you should look at as it relates to equity. You don't want to create more homeless people, and I think sometimes you do that, and there's a solution. So hopefully you do that, and thank you so much for making those changes. I can't believe it. Thanks.
My name, I use the pronouns rock, paper, scissors. It's like we've been 3 years into a pandemic, and these people are 5 years defaulted on paying their taxes, and it's like Catherine's, we're creating homelessness by taking these people's homes, and then you talk about, environmental justice and stuff like that. What about humanity? And the fact, you can independently assess the listed property, determining Chapter 8 purchases beneficial to the public, and then you establish how. And you can dispose of the property just to get the taxes back. So it's like, how do we know you're not going to actually get more than that? And you're basically putting these people out of a home. So like she said, what are you going to do with them? Just be like, well, there's some people on the streets. You can probably just cozy up to them. Some of them have really nice Gore-Tex bags. I saw one, I was pretty impressed, and he did not want to be off the streets, but anyway, it's just, and then you're saying here, the minimum bid is typically below $10,000. So it's like you're basically taking their home, which is an asset, probably worth hundreds of thousands, and you're like, if we don't get our taxes back, we're taking this. It's like, let's give people some grace and say, well, we've been in a really hard time, and so if we've been that way for 3 years, maybe you should, since now we're ending the COVID on the 28th, why don't you give them an extra 3 years to pay their property Because otherwise you're just going, I mean, are you going to have a shelter for them where they go? Or are we just going to not care what happens to them because they didn't pay their taxes? I don't know. And I wanted to say, Nora, Mike Borrello has been giving you guys a report for quite some time on the vaccines. Please read it.
Now we will hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Oliver Twist here. First, thank you, Joel, for pulling this item. So important for the backcountry residents. After having recently attended the new fire severity zone map hearings last month, I became increasingly concerned by what I saw. Several neighborhoods were severely negatively impacted, including the Santa Maria Creek and Highland Valley areas, the Deer Springs, North Twin Oaks Valley Road area, and Valley Center, all of which had the squeeze put them by forcing them into higher zones. After viewing those maps, I realized that surrounding neighbors then bear the burden of the higher fire insurance rates if they can get it at all. Every time you acquire open space, your actions will have direct negative impacts on those surrounding neighbors, which absolutely must be mitigated, either with tax credits to the surrounding neighbors within 5 miles, or perhaps a guaranteed homeowners insurance program from the state with premiums at reasonable rates. Your quest to increase open space for public benefit comes at a steep price for the neighbors of the parcels you acquire. Equity absolutely demands that they be made whole, not left holding the bag. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Truth? Catherine, you and your hope. Like I tried to say during consent, you supervisors make yourselves useless FEMA stooges. It's sad. So this item is, of course, Tara the Terror's pet baby, as she is a former United Nations minion. It's all about the county's acquisition of land through Chapter 8 tax defaulted property. The treasurer tax collector sells the property at public auction, and then a nonprofit can steal that private property via these Chapter 8 agreements. Regardless, Tara wants the county to purchase tax-defaulted properties for conservation with help from the County Acquisition Roundtable. Land monopolists fulfilling the United Nations Agenda 21 plan of taking all land to live on, other than smart city mobility hubs, of course. And all of this will cost county taxpayers more money for the purchase of tax-defaulted properties, as well as ongoing maintenance costs, with just the bid part costing you $10,000. You know they'll pay anything to acquire more land. Another Tara Bowl item. So, Tara, I dedicate this to you. It's your fault because you're full of hot air.
Just full disclaimer, when I was in 4th grade, my invention convention experiment, I was to put balloons on the rear ends of the cows to try to capture the methane to energy what is a cow. I appreciate your description of your past. That was really lovely.
How great a problem bovine flatulence is. Do you want to explain what that is and why it's a problem? They leak natural gas, both out the front and the back, how to get cows to stop farting. Exactly, or burping.
To put balloons on the rear ends of the cows.
That's what you've been doing to the county, Tara. You're full of hot air, and it smells horrible.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present, voting aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item SA01. And so this is a hearing to consider the sewer rate adjustments. I know that what we're going to go ahead and do is go ahead, open up for a public discussion, and then come back for our board to identify our what we've decided, what our options are.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 3 total requests to speak, 1 individual in person and 2 requesting to speak by phone. Would also like to note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments. For any members that request to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward. I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
You just said my name, I use the pronouns rock, paper, scissors. Okay, this is crazy because we're giving people sewer water to drink, and now it's like, we're gonna tax you more just to collect that sewer, to give it back to you, to drink. Does anybody not see that as a problem? Is that not weird? Like, are we at the point where sewer water is a good thing to drink? Can anybody raise their hand and be like, yes, I want to drink sewer water? Nobody is. But yet, we're giving it to people. And they're so delusional, they actually think it's cleaner than groundwater. And so here you are, you know, you could do 5%, 5.75, or 10 point, you know. Let's keep taxing people when we're having trouble even just keeping our home. So it's like, if they can't pay their sewer tax, are you gonna come and take their toilets or their house or their septic tank and be like, you can't use this because you're not paying us? At some point, you have to acknowledge that giving people sewer water to drink is evil. It's bad. I mean, in 1992, this was brought forward and people were terrified of it. And now they're just like, no, this is good. It's good. And so here you are taxing people just to shit. And then recycle it and give it right back. It's good. And then we talk about like public health and safety. But it's pretty delusional to think that sewer water is better than fresh water that you could drill for. Jim, I really recommend you going to San Marcos and looking at that water, the well.
Thank you. We will now hear
Maybe
from
we'll
those that
meet
request
there
to
one
speak
day.
by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I, again, would like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll begin with our first caller.
Truth. How can the county sanitation district provide a well-maintained sewer system that protects the health and well-being of the community and protects water quality? If we have crazy people like wicked Wilma Wonka of the West testing the wastewater all the time for diseases, and if the wastewater is full of diseases, then how can you supervisors justify using it as drinking water? I guess the answer is akin to pushing a toxic mRNA shot. It's not supposed to make sense. And yet the district's proposed annexation fee is based on the value of the district's wastewater collection system. What is the value of crap? Last year, there was yet another sewer fee package rate increase, totaling a 45% increase in price over 5 years. But they're not done raising prices. The fee increase will continue for another 5 years, either by 5% every year or by 10.25% every year. Doesn't that sound affordable? The Sanitation District Capital Improvement Project wants at least $4 million up to $9 million in funding for rehabilitation and replacement of the most critical sewer water infrastructure within the district. Why not let it crumble and install filters on everyone's toilets so they'll have free water to drink? That's sustainable, right? But the Sanitation District can't seem to operate within budget. They have a difference of $6.6 million in revenue and operating costs. It's called a failed business model, you fools. Why should anyone help you? I call for new leadership. Options A, B, and C all lead to debt for you and me. But I'm going to put my money on these supervisors choosing B. I don't know why. Anyways, take note that April 5th will be the adoption date for increased sewer service fees. See you 36,000 plus affected property owners in Alpine, Campo, East Otay Mesa, Lakeside, Pine Valley, Spring Valley, and Winter Gardens. Start submitting your written protest as required. If not, enjoy the fee raises for your apathy and laziness. So, no to this item.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Paul Henkin. The sewer district wants to jack up the rates 5% per year for 5 years to do high priority improvements for the next 18 years. So if the improvements are a high priority, why are you waiting 18 years to do them? They don't tell us when exactly the tipping point is when the increases are actually going to be necessary. And I suspect that the operation fund, which might be depleted, is actually one of the capital improvement funds. However, the whole thing does sound scary. Given the current costs for the homeowners on whose backs you propose to increase the fees these days, when people are being thrown out of work and, by the way, might end up jobless and homeless, there is near uncontrolled inflation and are struggling to provide the basics for themselves and their families. Now is not the time for a rate increase, period. Using cost recovery funding, says the agenda. One must remember that there were annual increases of 9% over the last 5 years, which is way more than inflation. Sounds like a lot of funding should be there already. So why is the sewer system in need of more funding? Maybe you're spending it for something that you shouldn't be? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you, and I want to say thank you to Department of Public Works for all the work that you did on this. I know that we are responsible to provide wastewater services and infrastructure to approximately 37,000 customers in the unincorporated areas of San Diego. And I know that you went ahead and, before you make this recommendation, that you did a system-wide assessment last year and also provided a rate and fee study, and for there was a lot of stakeholder engagement that was done in the fall and winter with a lot of the community planning groups and other stakeholders and customers. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware that this is not just this is a recommendation from staff that's coming forth, but there was a lot of thoughtfulness in the process and a lot of community engagement. And so with that, I am happy to make a recommendation that we approve item number 1, which is the exempt from CEQA impacts. And then we go to item number 2 and recommend item 2B, the 5.75 sewer rate increase per year for the next 5 fiscal years, which is staff's recommendation, and then approve all of the items 3 to 6. So we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion from my colleagues? No? Seeing none, please vote.
Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present, voting aye.
Okay. With that, we're going to go to, back to our item from yesterday, which is closed session. And so any public comment?
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We do have one request to speak on phone on closed session matters. At this time, I would ask the caller to dial into the conference line to provide their comments. We'll give the speaker a moment to dial in.
It's not working?
Chairwoman Vargas, I'm not seeing the caller call in, so that would conclude public comment on closed session.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go head over to...
My apologies, they just called in.
Okay.
Привет, я твой враг. Меня зовут Truth. Я, конечно, люблю. Как дела, друзья? If I have any. Хорошо. Nora, Jim, Nathan, Tara, Joel, Человечки. Инопланетно. Это сложно понять. Участник как новое платно. Толкано с ними. Сначала нас никто не остановит. Не верь, не бойся, не проси. Just like in the Soviet Union. Izoran. Спасибо. So let's be real. In English, you supervisors only made this a discussion item because Bill Gore's involved in one of the lawsuits. Well, I'll give some truth about the 32-year-long FBI employee, William Gore. Gore served in the lead FBI office in charge of the planned attack at Ruby Ridge and the subsequent murder of Randy Weaver, his 14-year-old son, Sammy Weaver, and then his unarmed wife, Vicky Weaver, who was holding her baby in her arms as she was murdered in cold blood by FBI sniper Lon Horiuchi. Maybe people can understand why I gave former Sheriff Anthony Ray, now retired after his own crimes, a hard time about being trained at an FBI academy. Because that's the type of work they've always done. Gore refused to testify at congressional hearings about the slaughter at Ruby Ridge. And then in 2014, a federal complaint was filed alleging that Sheriff Gore and his staff deleted Facebook comments asking Gore about Ruby Ridge. In 2015, a county audit found that Sheriff Gore mistakenly ferreted away more than $5 million in profits from jail commissaries. And on his way out to retirement, Gore donated thousands of his retirement dollars to the National Conflict Resolution Center, who wrote the Code of Civil Censorship for these meetings where people are not allowed to freely express human emotions, such as clapping. You supervisors are no different than Bill Gore, and there should be a lawsuit against you guys. You won't even let people have their First Amendment rights. And then you have people assaulted in the hallway, and you do nothing about it. There's a lot wrong.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on closed session.
Thank you. And then we'll be back after closed session to make sure that we give the opportunity, the additional non-agenda public comments, speakers to have an opportunity to provide their testimony. Thank you.
The board will now recess into closed session to continue consideration of those matters listed under item number 24 on yesterday's agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out after the conclusion of closed session today.
All right. We don't have anything to report from closed session, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the clerk for our speakers.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We still have 9 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. Those are all coming via phone. So for those that have requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and we'll give you a moment to do so. Now we will hear from those that are requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll begin with our first caller.
Supervisors.
You can go ahead and begin your comments.
Hello, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the name you were calling on?
Is this Kelly McCormick?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead and begin.
Hold
You got it. Go ahead and begin your comments.
This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with a focus on youth and young adults. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recognizes February as Marijuana Awareness Month. SAMHSA, the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, warns that marijuana use among all adult age groups, both sexes and pregnant women, is going up. At the same time, the perception of how harmful marijuana use can be is declining. Increasingly, young people today do not consider marijuana use a risky behavior. However, there are real risks for people who use marijuana, especially youth and young adults and women who are pregnant or nursing. Today's marijuana is stronger than ever. People can and do become addicted, and the effect on mental health is increasingly a concern as more young people become heavy users. The SAMHSA statement details some of the negative effects, including permanent loss of IQ points and a link to depression, anxiety, suicide, and psychotic episodes. When marijuana is used during pregnancy, there's an increased risk of stillbirth, premature birth, and problems in prenatal brain development. During Marijuana Awareness Month, I urge you to dig into the data and understand that marijuana use comes with very real risks that affect not only the user, but their family members, community at large, and anyone who happens to share the road if they get behind the wheel, mistakenly believing they are, quote, okay to drive. Thank you for your consideration.
You guys see the text from?
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I wanted to share a couple of observations, and now a third one, I guess, as well, that it's really difficult on those of us who are calling in from home. In my case, I'm a grandmother, and I have grandchildren here, to be in such a flux regarding public comment, because it's very difficult to know when you all have come back from closed session. Is there something more that would allow us to participate in a way that doesn't put us on hold like that? But I wanted to reflect to you something that came up at our county planning group meeting, because our planning group adjoins an area with the city of San Diego. And what our county planning group members have noticed is how differently the county does land use ordinances compared to the city doing land use ordinances. The city has several committee levels that they go through, and then they have a hearing officer, and then an appeal process, and then a planning commission. We at the county don't have any opportunity for members to participate in such a transparent and open and receptive manner. I wonder at the county if there's some way for us to set up a process where the county planning group members can deal at least with the land use policies, because those policies only affect those of us in the unincorporated area and don't affect countywide, which I realize is probably the greater proportion of the policies you look at. We're concerned about the way our land is being used and the lack of receptivity of the Board of Supervisors to our concerns about the way our land is used, and we need a better process where we can share our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Good afternoon, Peggy Walker. As part of Marijuana Awareness Month, we should be aware that marijuana poisonings in young children have increased at a rate exceeding 3,100%. The medical community is deeply concerned. The International Academy on the Science and Impact of Cannabis, or IMPACT, has just published warnings urging policies to protect children like Timmy, age 4. Timmy was rushed to ICU, his eyes rolling side to side, his floppy little body failing to respond. He had eaten one of his mother's cannabis-infused rainbow sherbet gummies, resulting in marijuana poisoning and coma. Because there is no THC antidote, Timmy had to detoxify over several days. Tanner Clements, also 4, was less fortunate. He ate his mother's THC Delta 8 gummies. His mother called poison control, but it was too late. Tanner was placed on life support and died 2 days later. These and other innocent children are victims of systematic failure to regulate an industry that is engaging in a novel experiment with unknown consequences. The THC in one gummy bear can cause altered mental status, encephalopathy, or delirium in young children. Isaac doctors are urging policies like those adopted in cities like Quebec, including limits on THC potency, bans on cannabis candies and flavored edibles, and child-proof packaging. I urge you to consider these. It seems little to ask if it protects children. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Truth? That took forever. Did you get lost in the jungle, Nora? Yesterday, the supervisors gave $1.5 million to their friends. Nora gave $25,000 to the International Community Foundation, which promotes the United Nations Agenda 21 plan of taking up all land to live on in Mexico under their emerging sustainable cities and their plan of a 1,400-mile binational UNESCO World Heritage Site consisting of Mexican states and California. Their parent organization is the Council on Foundations, which is funded by the Gates, Ford, Johnson, Kellogg, Rockefeller, HP, Carnegie, and the Walmart Foundation. And Nora amended $25,000 to the Environmental Health Coalition so frivolous lawsuit Marco Gonzalez can throw a party. And Nora amended money to finish UDW's $100,000 propaganda film. And Nora amended $20,000 to Think Dignity for gender-affirming garments for the homeless. Underwear is all that makes a woman, of course. Nathan gave $20,000 to Free to Thrive, whose board consists of Planned Parenthood employees, and $9,000 to San Diego County Bicycle Coalition, which is pushing complete streets in Carlsbad to de-incentivize driving. And Tara gave $5,000 to Exposure Skate, which used to be an all-female skate event, but is now an event where men can take over. And $10,000 to the San Diego Blood Bank. It's now an $80,000 blood mobile full of toxic blood. And she gave $15,000 to the Vietnamese American Youth Alliance because they complied like good slaves, requiring proof of toxic COVID shot injection in order to enter their Tet Festival. No thanks. And $15,000 to the La Jolla Golden Triangle Rotary Club for things like 75-inch TVs. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to. You can't handle the truth.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Kathleen Lippett here.
Good morning or good afternoon. I'd like to share today's Wall Street Journal article, California's Marijuana Paradise Lost. The author refers to marijuana advocates' promise to curb the illegal market. Actually, they promised not to just curb it, but eradicate it. California drug dealers celebrated. The most successful and dangerous among them, cartels, realized they no longer had to grow in Mexico. They could save money by growing in public parks and on public lands, stealing groundwater, and freely using dangerous chemicals. Former drug dealers promised to become law-abiding, but California officials also promised to obey the Constitution and federal law that included the law against marijuana due to its high potential for abuse. California was formerly known as the nation's breadbasket. It has become the nation's drug dealer. The glut of marijuana caused a precipitous drop in marijuana prices. Economically conflicted officials did everything they could to sustain the industry, weakening and eliminating laws, lowering taxes, granting millions in free taxpayer grant dollars. This board even gave permission to use unlimited access to essential and scarce unincorporated groundwater. But as a public health practitioner, it did surprise me that both state and local public health officials would be complicit in ignoring marijuana's high potential for abuse, especially with today's highly potent marijuana products. Increased availability, sale, and use would worsen public health problems and undo decades of smoke-free public policies. How does this board justify its concern for tobacco while ignoring marijuana? Both are well known for harming public health. The state has now passed a law that will allow marijuana exporters to enter in.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication.
Thank you. That concludes this meeting, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.
The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, February 28th at 9 a.m.